The Story of Chrono Trigger, Episode 1, A Journey Through Time. Most early role-playing video games feature stories of a rather standard variety. There might be some twists and turns, but generally they boil down to a group of good people triumphing over some bad ones. Chrono Trigger, on the other hand, risked doing a little bit more with the formula, with one of the key unique aspects being the involvement of time travel in the plot. Combining that with incredible visual design, music, gameplay, and characters, and it's no wonder that Chrono Trigger is often regarded as one of the greatest video games ever made. This mini-series will go over the story of the game from start to finish, with some caveats. Another unique aspect of Chrono Trigger for its time is the fact that there are a number of different endings possible, depending on the player's progression. For this playthrough, I'll be showing what is generally regarded as the canon ending to the game, and I'll also be making certain gameplay decisions in order to present the story as more of a typical narrative than a video game. The story opens in the year 1000 AD in the city of Truce. A young man, Chrono, is awoken by his mother, who says that he must have been so excited about the Millennial Fair that he couldn't sleep last night. The fair is being held to commemorate 1000 years since the founding of the Kingdom of Guardia, and is host to a wide assortment of shops and activities. Chrono plans on visiting his friend Luca there, a renowned inventor who is showing off her latest invention. Chrono's mother hands off his allowance, and he heads over to the fair. After chatting with some of the other attendees and betting on a race, Chrono moves further into the fair. Here, he accidentally bumps into a young blonde girl, sending them both to the ground. When they get back up, the girl remarks that her pendant is missing. Chrono quickly finds it nearby on the ground and hands it back to her. She thanks him and says that she's not from Truce, but she came here to visit the fair. She asks if he wants to walk around the fair together, and introduces herself as Marl. The two spend some time together, with Chrono participating in a drinking contest, and the two returning a girl's kitten back to her. While speaking with a swordsmith named Melchior, he asks Chrono if he'll try and convince Marl to sell him her pendant, but Chrono refuses. Eventually, the two hear that Luca is finished setting up her new invention, so the two progress to the back of the fairgrounds. They find Luca along with her father, Tabin, with them showing off a set of teleportation devices capable of teleporting matter from one of the pods to the other. Luca is glad to see Chrono, as no one here is willing to try the teleporter, and she quickly convinces Chrono to give it a shot. The machine hums with energy as it powers up, until it finally activates, successfully sending Chrono to the other pad. Marl remarks that it looks like fun, and she wants to give it a try as well. Luca and her father fire up the machine once again, but this time, Marl's pendant begins to glow, and the machine goes haywire. A large portal spontaneously appears, and Marl is pulled into it before it closes. Tabin quickly clears the onlookers from the scene, and Luca surmises that there must have been more that caused it than just the teleporter. Chrono finds Marl's pendant on the telepad and picks it up, with the intention of following her wherever she went. Luca and her father activate the machine again, and once more the portal opens. Luca wishes him good luck and says that she'll follow him through as soon as she figures out what went wrong here. Chrono gets dumped out of the portal into a very different locale, up in the mountains. Before he has a chance to catch his breath, however, he's attacked by a small group of fiends. Fortunately, Chrono is somewhat capable with a sword and fends them off. He tackles a few more fiends on his way down the mountain, and after emerging, realizes that he's still in the city of Truce, but it looks a bit different, with no millennial fair going on. Speaking with a resident, she tells him that, of course, there's no millennial fair, as their kingdom is only 600 years old, and King Guardia the 21st is on the throne instead of King Guardia the 33rd. It would seem that Chrono has been sent 400 years back in time, and Marl is nowhere to be seen. Speaking with some more residents, he learns that the kingdom is currently at war with an individual referred to as the Fiend Lord, and the king's soldiers recently found the queen wandering in the canyon after being missing for quite a while. Chrono decides to head up to Guardia Castle after checking the whole town for Marl. Arriving at the castle, Chrono is accosted by the guards at the front, until the queen shows up and orders them to stop. The queen turns out to shockingly resemble Marl, and says that Chrono is a friend of hers. She then walks off, and Chrono briefly speaks with the king, who remarks that his wife has been acting a little strangely since she was rescued. Chrono heads upstairs to speak privately with the queen, who reveals that she is, in fact, Marl, but everyone keeps calling her Lean for some reason. She says that she somehow knew he would come after her, but she suddenly starts crying out in pain before vanishing entirely. Chrono, bewildered, heads back downstairs, where he bumps into Luca, and he informs her of what happened. Luca is far less confused by the situation than Chrono, however, and she explains what's happened. Marl has been mistaken for her own ancestor, as she is actually Princess Nadia of their time period. Queen Lean was kidnapped in this time period, and someone was supposed to have gone and rescued her, but their presence here has changed history. Marl was dumped off in the mountains nearby, where she was found by the soldiers, who then called off the search before they found the actual queen. This change will apparently lead to the real queen being killed, creating a paradox that will erase her descendants, including Marl. In order to preserve the flow of history, Chrono and Luca will have to find the real queen. The two leave the castle and continue to explore the surrounding region. With the bridge to the southern island in disarray thanks to the Fiend Lord's army, their last stop is a large cathedral in the woods. The nuns inside of the cathedral seem to be a little odd, but there's no sign of the queen. Just before departing, however, they spot something on the ground, which turns out to be a hairpin bearing the Guardia Royal crest. Upon this discovery, the nuns reveal themselves to be fiends in disguise and attack the two. They fend off the group, but as one more appears and lunges at Luca, she's saved by the sudden appearance of a small humanoid frog wielding a sword. The creature speaks eloquently, however, and asks if they'll accompany him further into this lair to rescue the queen. Luca exclaims that she can't stand frogs, and the creature says that they can do as they please, but he must save the queen. Luca hesitantly changes her mind, and the two agree to accompany him further inside. The creature introduces himself simply as Frog, and says that there must be a hidden doorway here. They end up finding it, triggered by the cathedral's organ, and proceed into the fiend-filled lair. Along the way, they find an entire shrine devoted to the Fiend Lord, an individual apparently named Magus. Finally, in the back of the cathedral, they find Queen Lean being held captive by Guardia's Chancellor. The Chancellor decides that this charade has gone on long enough, and he proceeds to transform into a large monster, calling himself Yakra. A fierce battle ensues, but with Frog's capable assistance, they defeat Yakra. Frog thanks the two for their help in saving the queen, and they find the real Chancellor tied up in one of the chests nearby. The group returns to the castle, where the king curiously doesn't question who exactly the girl was that they found originally. The Chancellor, meanwhile, states that they'll have to institute a stricter criminal justice system in Guardia to ensure that no one threatens the royal family ever again. Frog, however, laments that he failed to protect the queen and departs the castle. Chrono and Luca return to where Marl disappeared, where she just as suddenly reappears, wondering what happened. She says that she couldn't feel or see anything, but she knows she was someplace cold, and wonders if that's what it's like to die. She proceeds to confess that she is indeed a member of the royal family, but she lied in order to be treated like normal. With the real queen of this period safe and sound, and Marl back in one piece, the three return to the mountain where they first arrived. Luca reveals that these portals, which she calls gates, are unstable, appearing and disappearing all the time. Utilizing the same principles as her telepod device, however, she's developed a handheld piece of technology she calls a gate key, which locks the gate in place, allowing them to utilize it at will. The three head through the gate, ending back at the Millennial Fair in 1000 AD. Luca plans on investigating further on why exactly the gate appeared in the first place, and tells Chrono to escort Marl back to the castle. Upon entry, however, they're stopped by the Chancellor, who orders Chrono to be arrested for kidnapping a member of the royal family. Despite Marl's protests to the contrary, Chrono is knocked out and immediately taken into court. Chrono's appointed lawyer, Pierre, argues that it was the princess herself who asked Chrono if she could join him, which is corroborated by Chrono. The Chancellor, however, counters that witnesses report that it was Chrono who bumped into Marl at the fair, and shortly after, the two disappeared. A character witness is brought in to testify, revealed to be the young girl whose kitten was rescued by Chrono. Pierre then argues that Chrono had no motive for kidnapping the princess, but the Chancellor argues that he was strongly motivated by greed, a fact Chrono vehemently denies. Eventually, the jurors are brought in one by one to decide whether Chrono is guilty or not. In the end, 6 of the 7 jurors proclaim Chrono to be not guilty, and Chrono is sentenced to 3 days of solitary confinement for aiding in the princess's flight from the castle. Marl bursts into protest, followed by King Guardia, who tells her to leave the rest to the Chancellor and to forget about her little escapade in town. Chrono is escorted to the prison, where the Chancellor informs the warden that he is a seditionist who planned on overthrowing the kingdom. He lies that Chrono has been found guilty and is to be executed in 3 days. The warden dares not to question the order, and Chrono is tossed into a cell to wait. Rather than waiting for his own execution, however, Chrono begins making a racket on his cell bars, eventually angering one of his guards enough to enter the cell and knock him to the floor. When his back is turned, however, Chrono manages to knock him out, before taking care of the other guard. With his equipment back, Chrono continues to move through the prison, eventually ending up back at the entrance, where he finds the warden, who swiftly flees. He's knocked out, however, by none other than Luca, who came to rescue Chrono. As they move across the bridge back to the castle proper, they're stopped by the Chancellor standing behind a large tank in the shape of a dragon. The tank is a marvel of engineering, but it proves to be no match for the two, with Chrono finishing it off by slashing across its back, resulting in an explosion. The two are quickly accosted by more guards when they reach the castle, but the guards are ordered to stand down by Marl. The king arrives and tells Marl that she is a princess and she has responsibilities, with her little excursions seeming to be a bad influence on her. Marl yells that she can't stand to live here anymore and flees the castle with Chrono and Luca. The three are chased into the nearby woods by the guards until they come across another gate. Marl is enthusiastic about jumping into it, although Luca argues that they have no idea where or when they'll end up, and they might not be able to come back. In the end, Chrono agrees with Marl, and they hop into the gate, much to the Chancellor's confusion. On the other end of the gate, the three find themselves in a stark but futuristic-looking building, and upon emerging, discover that they now find themselves in what appears to be a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Nearby is a large dome structure, where they find people living inside, although they look like they're not long for this world. Most of the inhabitants mention food, as there isn't any here, and they've never heard of Truce or Guardia. With no other options, the three traverse the monster-filled ruins of a large city, coming out on the other side to find another large dome. When they tell the inhabitants that they just traveled across the ruins, they all perk up in astonishment. An elderly man there, Doan, tells them that the substructure of this dome contains both a supercomputer and a food storage facility, but they're being guarded by security robots that won't let anyone through. The group immediately begins to descend into the structure, and upon approach to the food storage area, they are ambushed by a large robot. The creation puts up quite the fight, but with the three of them working together, they soon destroy it. Unfortunately, all of the food in the storage has rotted, with Luca surmising that the refrigeration failed at some point. They also find a human corpse here, one of the residents that must have made it down here but couldn't make it back out. Clutched in his hand is a single seed, which the group takes. Using a code they find to access a separate branch of the structure, they find the supercomputer, which Luca uses to locate another gate. She finds one to the east, past another ruined city. Marl then presses a large button on the terminal, which brings up a visual record titled as The Day of Lavos, from the year 1999 AD. The video shows a massive alien creature emerging from underground and proceeding to launch quills across the world, devastating everything and bringing about the apocalypse. This is their future, set to occur 999 years from their present time. Marl, however, exclaims that they can change history, just like they did in 600 AD. Luca isn't quite so enthusiastic about their chances, but agrees that it is possible, and Chrono agrees as well. For now, however, they have to get back to their own time period. Upon returning topside, the inhabitants swarm around them in shock that they made it back alive. They tell them that the only thing they found down there was a seed, which might be their only hope of staying alive. Doan says that he doesn't know what kind of seed this is, but he's encouraged by the group's optimism, and he'll do his best to grow it. He then hands them a key to a jet bike parked at the nearby ruins, telling them that hopefully it still works and can get them across in a hurry. As it turns out, it does work, but before the group can hop into the sleek vehicle, they're stopped by an individual with wheels attached to his back, calling himself Johnny, alongside some robotic minions. Johnny says that he'll let them use that jet bike to get across the ruins, but only if they agree to race him. With the only alternative being to slog it across the ruins on foot, the group agrees. The race is neck and neck up until the finish line, but Chrono manages to pull ahead at the last moment and clinch the win. Johnny is surprised but pleased, and the three continue on to the Eastern Dome. They don't find a gate, but instead find a broken down humanoid robot, which immediately intrigues Luca, who claims that she can likely fix it. After working on it for some time, she activates the robot, who turns out to be exceedingly polite and asks them what their command is. Luca and Marl convince him to drop the formalities and ask him his name. He doesn't have one, instead offering his serial number of R-66Y. While Luca finds this cool, Marl and Chrono instead give him the name of Robo. Robo apparently was deactivated during the apocalypse, so he doesn't have any memories of it. The gate the group is looking for is likely behind a sealed door here, but Robo says that they'll need to reactivate the power from the nearby factory in order to open it. Robo will accompany them in order to bypass the security measures, but one of them needs to stay behind to open the door during the brief window the power is on. Sensing that Luca's technical ability might come in handy, Marl stays behind. Despite Robo being able to bypass security in order to get them through the factory, it's still loaded with hostile robots and other monsters. Eventually, the group manages to access the emergency generator, but activating it causes the security system to go haywire. During their flight from the facility, they're stopped by a group of 6 robots, similar in appearance to Robo. Robo says that they are his friends, but one of them knocks Robo back and claims that he is defective. Their assigned task, including Robo's, was to eliminate all intruders, and since Robo is ignoring that task, he must be destroyed. The 6 robots begin thrashing Robo mercilessly, tossing him aside before turning to Chrono and Luca. A battle ensues, and while the odds are stacked against the two, they manage to prevail. They proceed to drag the damaged remains of Robo back to the dome, where Luca begins spending a great deal of time repairing him. While fixing him, they explain to Robo what their goal is, and Luca asks Robo what he wants to do after he's repaired. The question confuses him, as no one's ever asked him before. After finishing the repairs, Robo says that he has an answer, and tells the group that he wants to go with them. There's nothing left for him here, and together they might be able to give the life on this planet a chance. The group welcomes him with open arms, and the 4 of them proceed through the gate in the back room. They end up in a very strange locale, a platform seemingly floating in an abyss. They find an old man standing against a street lamp, who refers to them as drifters. He informs them that they are now located at the end of time, and travelers lost in time's flow turn up here, like driftwood on a beach. Whenever 4 or more entities of varying origins enter a temporal rift together, the torsion exerted on time's flow pushes them to the point of least resistance. Here. This has apparently been happening more often lately, and he fears that something is having a powerful effect on the very fabric of time. Someone is going to have to stay here then, to avoid any more complications, a concept that doesn't greatly appeal to Marl. The old man admits that it is a bleak place, but there are gates here connected to any time period they'd like to visit. The group decides to leave Robo here for now, who's already accustomed to isolation and won't completely fit in back in 1000 AD. As the group heads over to use the gate back to 1000 AD, the old man stops them, telling them to check out the room behind him. When they do, they find an odd little furry creature calling itself Specchio, the Master of War. He says that a long time before they were born, there was a kingdom where magic flourished and everyone could use it. The people there abused their powers, however, and ended up destroying their kingdom. After that, there wasn't anyone left who could use magic, aside from fiends. Specchio says that they have the inner strength necessary to fuel magic, however, with Chrono possessing the power of light, Marl the power of water, and Luca the power of fire. Specchio tells them to walk around the room 3 times while chanting, "I want to use magic," over and over in their heads. While this sounds completely ridiculous, they humor the creature, performing the task. Afterwards, Specchio congratulates them and proceeds to activate their magic power, allowing all 3 of them to use magic. He then offers to let them test their magic out on him, and although it's true that they can now use magic, Specchio still manages to trounce them. Fortified with their new abilities, the 3 head through the gate back to 1000 AD, but they end up in a new location, falling out of a wardrobe in a house owned by a couple of fiends. The fiends turn out to be not exactly friendly, but not hostile either, and they get over the initial shock to explain to the group that they are now in Medina Village, which was founded by fiends 400 years ago after they lost a war against humankind. Medina is on a separate island entirely from Truce, with no ferries running here, and most of the fiends here hold a grudge against humans. They do mention an odd old human who lives near a cave in the mountains to the west that may be able to help them out. The group pokes around the village, meeting the mayor, Ozzy VIII, whose ancestor fought alongside the Fiend Lord himself, and wonders aloud why Magus didn't exterminate the human race when he had the chance. On that note, the group decides to leave Medina and check out the old man's house. The old man turns out to be Melchior the swordsmith from the fair, and despite his extensive collection of weapons for sale, he isn't able to help them get back to Truce. Instead, they check out the cave nearby, finding it filled with hostile fiends. At the end of the cave, they fight a large fiend known as Hekron, providing them a perfect opportunity to test out their new magical abilities. Before dying, Hekron cries out and mentions that Magus is responsible for summoning Lavos 400 years ago. What exactly happened in relation to that summoning and why Lavos took nearly 1400 years to destroy the world is unknown, but the group decides to head back to 600 AD to investigate further. They find a whirlpool in the back of the cave that dumps them out back near Truce. They stop in at Luca's home, where her father gives her some new equipment that he's made, and they say hi to her mother, who became disabled after an accident with some machinery a number of years ago. They then stop into Chrono's house, where his mother exclaims her relief at seeing Chrono alive, since she had heard that he was going to be executed. After petting his cat and deciding it's best not to stop back at Guardia Castle, the group takes the gate at the back of the fair and heads back to the Middle Ages. Speaking with some of the locals in Truce, they learn that King Guardia has been wounded during the ongoing war against the Fiend Lord, but the hero of legend has arrived to defeat him. The 2 armies are battling it out on the bridge leading to the southern island, but they're running low on supplies. The group heads up to Guardia Castle, where they meet with the king, recovering in bed. Sir Cyrus, their greatest knight, is nowhere to be found, so instead their hopes rest on the shoulders of the boy wearing the hero's badge. The boy has gone to the southern island in order to find the sword that can slay Magus. It seems like the group needs to get across that bridge, so they retrieve some fresh supplies from the castle's kitchens and deliver it to the soldiers at the bridge. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like enough for the soldiers to stave off the onslaught, so Chrono, Marl, and Luca step in to assist. Moving across the bridge, they find Ozzy, one of Magus's 3 generals, who is raising the dead soldiers as undead monsters. The group continues to assail Ozzy across the bridge, causing the undead soldiers to return to rest until they reach the other side. Here, Ozzy combines a number of undead into a single large monstrosity named Zombor. Despite Zombor's unique defenses, the group makes short work of him and continues south to the village of Dorino. Here they learn that the legendary sword, Masamune, rests within the nearby Denadoro Mountains, where it's guarded by a terrible beast. In the town of Pore, they overhear that a strange frogman came into the tavern, mumbling about Queen Lean and the Masamune, and the legendary hero is actually a young boy from this village named Tata. Before heading up the mountains to seek out Tata, they roam through the nearby forest and find an underground hovel, which turns out to be Frog's home. Frog is shocked to learn that the king has been wounded, but refuses to join them, saying that he is no hero and there's nothing he can do. It's unfortunate, but if Tata truly is the legendary hero that can wield Masamune, he might be all they need. The Denadoro Mountains turn out to be filled with monsters, and shortly upon approach, they find a young boy fleeing for his life. Hoping that that isn't Tata, they continue upwards, eventually reaching the peak. Here, in a cave, they find a sword embedded into the ground, along with two kids. The kids turn out to be named Masa and Mune, and they decide to test the group to see if they're worthy of wielding the sword. They reveal their true forms, much more bestial in appearance, and a fight ensues, although the two don't prove to be much of a challenge. Eventually they stop, and conclude that no one has lasted this long since Cyrus, so they decide to start fighting for real. They merge together into one large monster, and it seems that they weren't kidding, as their combined form puts up a much more difficult fight. Combining Marl and Luca's elemental powers with Chrono's swordplay, however, turns out to be enough to win the day, and the two revert back to their human forms. They remark on how much fun that was, and then wonder if the group will fix them and find their proper owner. They proceed to merge with the sword in the ground, becoming the proper Masamune, which turns out to be only a broken half of a sword. Returning back to Pore, they find the boy, Tata, who admits that he picked up the hero's badge on the floor of the tavern after a froggish fellow dropped it. He originally was going to sell it, but after everyone started calling him a hero, he went along with it. He's had enough of this hero business, however, and hands them the badge. The group returns to Frog, showing him the badge, and although he's happy to see it, he says that he can't do anything against a Magus without the Masamune, and even if he had it, he has no right to wield it. In a container in his home, they find the other broken half of the sword, and upon closer inspection, they see an engraving on it in archaic letters, which Luca makes out to read as Melchior. How exactly a man who lives 400 years from now created the sword is a perplexing question, one they want answered as quickly as possible. Using the time gates, they return to 1000 AD and enter Melchior's home. Shocked at the sight of the Masamune, he admits that it's a very long story as to why his name is on it. He could reforge it, but not without some Dreamstone, which is what the sword is made of. Dreamstone can no longer be found, however, as it was a glittering red stone once valued more than gold, in a time long before they could even imagine. Time is becoming less of a concern for the group, however, and sure enough, the end of time features a gate that takes the group far, far back in time, all the way back to 65 million BC. Unfortunately, the other end of the gate opens up in mid-air up in the mountains, and upon landing, the group is attacked by a horde of scaly, humanoid reptiles. Although they defeat a number of them, there's more than they can handle, and things look dire until a stranger appears to help out. The stranger turns out to be a fit, blonde girl wearing some skimpy furs, who fights off the creatures using only her hands and feet. Afterwards, the girl pins Chrono up against a wall, asks for his name, and introduces herself as Isla. She states that she likes strong men, so she likes Chrono, and then states that Marl and Luca are also strong, and she likes both strong men and women, embarrassing the two. She then asks where they came from, to which Luca responds that they are from way after the day after tomorrow, prompting only laughter from Isla. She invites the group back to her village for eating and dancing, and after Luca asks after Dreamstone, Isla states that there are stones everywhere, and she'll give them many stones. With no other clear leads, the group decides to follow after to her village, Ioka, at which point a party is held in their honor. Isla tells Chrono that the creatures they fought off are known as reptites, led by an individual named Azala, whom Isla states is very smart. Everyone in Ioka village fights the reptites, and those that don't go off to another village named Laruba. Azala plans on wiping out all of the humans, but Isla won't go down without a fight. After dancing with Marl and drinking a local beverage called Skull Smash with Luca, Chrono speaks again with Isla, who shows him a large red rock. She explains that the person who holds this rock is a strong person, and since Isla is the strongest in the village, it's her rock. If Chrono wants it, he'll have to earn it by winning a drinking competition. Isla and Chrono compete to see who can drink more Skull Smash, with Chrono emerging the victor and winning the Dreamstone. The night passes by, and just as it seems that they'll be able to head back to Melchior with their prize, Luca discovers that the gate key is missing. Without the key, they'll be stranded here forever, so they go find Isla in her hut to see if she knows anything. She immediately suspects the reptites, and agrees to help check out their lair to find it. Chrono decides to have Robo join the two of them, and they head south of the village to a large forest, where they find Kino, a member of the village that's close with Isla. After some pressure from Isla, he quickly admits to stealing the key due to being jealous of her attention towards Chrono. Kino apologizes to both Isla and Chrono, but reveals that he doesn't have the key anymore, as the reptites took it from him. Isla sends Kino back to Ioka, as the three of them continue through the forest, eventually arriving at the cavernous reptite lair. After navigating through the caves and fighting off a bunch of both reptites and other beasts, the group comes across Azala, the queen of the reptites, who speaks quite eloquently and refers to the group as apes. Azala asks them what the purpose of the gate key is, but Chrono declines to tell her, prompting Azala to bring out a muscular, bipedal dragon creature named Nizbil. The group is forced into a battle against Nizbil, with Chrono having to use his ability to cast light magic to weaken Nizbil's defenses, allowing Robo and Isla to pummel him. Eventually, they beat the creature down, and Azala admits defeat, for now, handing back the gate key while exclaiming that the reptites are the true rulers of this world. Back in Ioka, Isla is sad that the group is leaving, and hopes they return at some point. With the gate key in hand, they return to the gate up in the mountains, heading back to the end of time, followed by 1000 AD. Returning to Melchior, he's quite perplexed on how they managed to find both the Masamune and some Dreamstone, but agrees to mend the sword, with Luca's assistance. After some amount of work, they reveal the repaired Masamune in all its glory. The group takes it back to Frog in 600 AD, who is shocked by its appearance and states that he needs some time to ponder this turn of events. During the night, he thinks about Sir Cyrus, the great knight of Guardia, who went off on a quest to reclaim the hero badge from a creature known as the Frog King, alongside his loyal squire, Glenn. Cyrus easily bested the Frog King, and with the hero badge in hand, he also eventually claimed the Masamune as well. Sometime later, Cyrus and Glenn faced off against Magus himself, who shattered the Masamune and easily struck down Cyrus. Cyrus asked Glenn to look after Queen Lean before his body burst into flames. Glenn stared down Magus in anger, but was ultimately defenseless, prompting Magus to cast a spell on him and transform him into a humanoid frog. Frog states that this was 10 years ago, and tells the group that he doesn't know how far his skills will carry him, but he will put them to the test. Chrono, Frog, and Marl approach a sheer cliff wall near the Denadoro Mountains, where supposedly a path to Magus's castle lies. Upon approach, Frog reminisces about when he was a child, being bullied by others, only to be saved by Cyrus. Cyrus tells him that there are times when a man must stand and face the things that trouble him. Glenn says that he can't bring himself to hurt another person, to which Cyrus responds that he's too soft. Later in life, Cyrus tells Glenn that he's decided to join the knighthood and asks Glenn to join him, as he's better with the sword than Cyrus. Glenn says that he hasn't the nerve that it takes to be a knight, and he'd freeze up in a real battle. After being turned into a frog by Magus, he recovered the hero's badge that had fallen from Cyrus's corpse. Back in the present, Frog takes the Masamune and states that his name is Glenn. Long has he carried Cyrus's hopes and dreams, and now he bears the Masamune as well. Henceforth he claims them as his own, and he shall slay the Fiend Lord and restore their honor. Frog proceeds to lift the sword into the air, sending a beam of rippling energy into the sky that pierces the clouds. He then swings the Masamune down in front of him, which splits the cliff in twain, revealing a cave entrance. The group proceeds to enter the cave, with the other end turning out to be another island entirely, where Magus's castle is located. The castle is dark and ominous, with a foreboding air to it, but they enter nonetheless. Curiously, as they roam the grim halls of the keep, they are not accosted at all by monsters, only by the dark atmosphere. After exploring as much as they can, however, Ozzy reveals himself, greeting Frog and taunting him. Ozzy states that Lord Magus is busy right now, and they'll have to deal with his 3 generals first. The Master Swordsman, Slash, the Magician, Flea, and Ozzy himself, along with all of the beasts in the keep. Now, the monsters make themselves known, and a brutal gauntlet ensues as the group continues back through the halls of the castle in search for the generals. They eventually come across the swordsman, Slash, who is surprised that Frog found the courage to come here. A fight begins, with Slash proving to be quite the swordsman indeed, lashing out with furious strikes. Unfortunately for him, however, he's at a disadvantage with 3 against 1, and he is eventually beaten. The group continues on, battling more and more of Magus's minions, until finally coming across the second of the generals, Flea. Despite his ladylike appearance, he is capable of some impressive magic, including the ability to turn others against their allies. Again, the numerical advantage is in the group's favor, and before long, Flea goes down as well. They battle back to where they first encountered Ozzy, finding a portal that takes them further into the castle. After defeating more minions, they encounter Ozzy again, and after he realizes that they've beaten both Slash and Flea, he runs deeper into the castle. Ozzy proceeds to force the group through a number of trapped rooms, but the traps prove to be inconveniences at best, and before long, Ozzy runs out of room to flee. He states that Magus should have finished summoning Lavos by now, and then puts an invincible barrier around himself. Rather than trying to fight through it, the group instead activates one of Ozzy's own traps, sending him plummeting below. With all 3 generals down, the path is clear to Magus himself. In the deepest recesses of the castle, they enter into his dark, ritual chamber, lit by a series of candles. As they rush in, they hear Magus reciting an incantation, offering up the life of this world in order to summon Lavos. Frog approaches the Fiend Lord with the Masamune in hand, and Magus remembers him as well as the Masamune. He states that he hopes no one else interferes this time, and says that, again, the bitter black winds begin to howl. He's not much for conversation, however, and the battle begins, with Chrono, Frog, and Marl facing off against perhaps one of the greatest sorcerers to ever live. Magus completely lives up to his reputation, effortlessly throwing out powerful magical spells of multiple different elements, demonstrating a mastery over all magical arts. It's a desperate battle for survival as the 3 throw both sword and spell at the warlock, barely staying alive against his onslaught. The Masamune proves to be invaluable, absorbing some of Magus's dark energy and weakening him. As the fight goes on, Magus begins to lower his guard as he casts his most powerful spell, Dark Matter, and the group frantically tries to put him down before they fall under the relentless tide of dark magic. Eventually, surprising both Magus and likely themselves, they best the Fiend Lord in combat. They then hear a great sound in the distance, which they presume to be Lavos, and they prepare themselves for an even worse fight. Magus cries out that Lavos mustn't awaken from his slumber yet, which confuses the group, as they assume that Magus just created Lavos with his ritual. Magus calls them fools, however, and reveals that he merely summoned it, as Lavos has dwelt within the earth for eons, absorbing the land's energy and growing ever stronger. A massive gate appears and sucks the group into it, with Magus exclaiming in anger about them interfering. What exactly they did by interfering is unclear, but what is clear is that Lavos is much older than they first thought, and eliminating Magus would in no way eliminate Lavos. This means that their journey through time is far from over, as now they not only have to figure out what exactly Lavos is, but how to defeat it before it destroys their future. They've come far, and have grown much stronger than when they started, but there's no way they're prepared for a world-ending threat like that. Time will tell if they ever will be.